You are listening to the Beloit Podcast.
Welcome back to the Beloit Podcast. In the 1960s and early 70s, Beloit College hosted concerts from artists and groups such as Gene Autry, Ella Fitzgerald, Louis Armstrong, Count Basie, Cream with Eric Clapton, the Paul Butterfield Blues Band, Frank Zappa and the Mothers of Invention, and the Jefferson Airplane. Those are just a few. In 1967, the year of the social phenomenon known as the Summer of Love, Jefferson Airplane was the best-known band among San Francisco's counterculture. The group's 1967 release of the album Surrealistic Pillow rocketed the group to international fame, and they would go on to play all the major festivals of the 1960s. On the group's way to legendary status, Jefferson Airplane made a visit to the Beloit College Fieldhouse in July 1967. According to the band's official website, Jefferson Airplane formed in 1965 in San Francisco Bay during the summit of the counterculture that was sweeping the country. One of the pioneering bands of psychedelic rock in what was known as the San Francisco sound of the late 60s, Jefferson Airplane featured a lineup consisting of founder and co-lead vocalist Marty Balin, Paul Cantor on guitar and vocals, Grace Slick on lead vocals, Jorma Kokkonen on lead guitar and vocals, Jack Cassidy on bass, and Spencer Dryden on drums. Over the years, members of the group changed, which uniquely contributed to the evolution of the band's name. When Jefferson Airplane regrouped in 1974, it was under the name Jefferson Starship, and later in 1985, after legal action from founding member Paul Cantor, the group continued under the name Starship. On June 9, 1967, Airplane's hit song, Somebody to Love, reached as high as number 3 on Chicago-based radio station WLS, right behind Little Bit of Soul by Music Explosion at number 2, and behind Airplane at number 4 on the charts, the song She'd Rather Be With Me by The Turtles, a group that featured Howard Kalin and Mark Volman on lead vocals. Both Mark and Howard would later visit Beloit College in 1970 as part of the Mother's Invention reunion tour with Frank Zappa. On Sunday, July 2nd, Jefferson Airplane performed a 3-hour set at the Beloit College Fieldhouse. The show began at 8 p.m. and admission was $3. You could purchase tickets at the door, by mail, or at Weiss's box office in downtown Rockford. Jefferson Airplane's 1967 tour featured music from the band's first album, 1966's Jefferson Airplane Takes Off, also featuring music from 1967's Surrealistic Pillow. At the end of 1967, the band released their third studio album, titled After Bathing at Baxter's. Just before the group's performance in Beloit, Airplane's career had reached a new peak when they headlined the Monterey International Pop Festival on June 17th of 1967. A few other legendary artists with Beloit history also shared the stage at Monterey, including the Byrds, the Steve Miller Band, and the Paul Butterfield Blues Band, who performed at the Fieldhouse in October of 1967. The Beach Boys, who played Riverfest in 2008, had been involved in the conception of the Monterey Pop Festival, and at one point were scheduled to headline and close the show, although in the end they failed to perform. Jefferson Airplane not only headlined the Monterey Pop Festival in 1967, they would also go on to headline the first Isle of Wight Festival in England in 1968, Woodstock in 1969, and the Altamont Free Concert in 1969. Jefferson Airplane would be the only group of this era to play all 3 events. Formed in 1965, by the summer of 1967, the Jefferson Airplane was the first band from the San Francisco Bay Area to achieve international commercial success. 1967 was not only a historic year for the Jefferson Airplane, psychedelic rock, and the counterculture of the 1960s, July 2nd, 1967 marked another unique moment in Beloit's musical and live performance history. Find a copy of one of the original advertisements for the July 2nd, 1967 Jefferson Airplane performance that took place at the Beloit College Fieldhouse at lifeoutoftunes.com, the blog site of Beloit author Joe Accardi. Thanks for listening.
My dad made it.